Do you know that the fate of our own health is in more control than many people think, simply by just deciding on what's left on our plate and what's left off of our plate? Today, I'm going to talk to you about the risks of excessive consumption of red meat and the health risks it poses to us, and the increased risk of cancer, diabetes, and heart disease in particular that really arises when you consume too much. I'm gonna go over offer a solution, a few immediate steps that you can take to reduce your chance of ever coming across one of these chronic diseases listed. And towards the end of the video, I'm going to briefly summarize everything that we'll go over, and feel free to answer any questions that you might have. According to from all of the research that I have looked into, scientific databases and articles, it is becoming definite that there is a direct correlation between red meat and heart disease, and especially colorectal cancer. Now let's delve into the problem a little bit more. So a study from the World Health Organization in 2015 says that red meat is classified as a group 2, class 2 probable carcinogen. As we know, carcinogenic substances are cancer causing. And if you already have red meat, which is known for its inflammatory properties that is being burned, the hazards are increased given that it is widely accepted food that people around the world eat, often in excess. A second study from the National Library of Medicine states that epidemiological analysis have then confirmed that consuming too much protein, 100 grams a day of red meat in excess, can lead to colorectal cancer by up to 12%. Additionally, an article I found titled Limit Consumption of Red and Processed Meat from the World Cancer Research Fund says that high consumption of red meat will increase the risk of coronary vascular diseases, type 2 diabetes, and increases your risk of mortality overall. Now, let's delve into some solutions that we can take, which often includes minimizing and consuming red meat wisely with moderation. According to the Washington Post, a professor in nutrition, Dr. Pasricha, writes in 2025 that 3 servings of red meat per week is sufficient, and we shouldn't be consuming more than that. Now, she says that marinating meat, especially before grilling it with spices that are rich in antioxidants, can reduce the carcinogenic exposure that you get up to 88%. And the harm the red meat may pose to you is going to be minimized. Now, many people that try to support red meat consumption and see no problem with it may argue that it's crucial that we have some sort of red meat in our diet because it's a high source of protein. And while I may say that that is true, there are plant-based alternatives that have almost as much protein that you would find in red meat without any of the negative health risks that are present in red meat in the first place. Now, from everything that we have covered so far and all the information that you have now absorbed, I want you guys to envision what the contrast between living a life that is constantly reliant on red meat consumption and all of the numerous health risks that you would possibly endure: increased cholesterol levels, diabetes, heart disease, cancer, or envision yourself incorporating more plant-based protein alternatives into your life, into your meals, able to achieve the same amount of protein you'd be getting with those red meats, but without having to worry about a single one of those health problems, just by avoiding red meat. Now, say you want to take immediate steps. These are immediate steps that you can start taking starting today to reduce the health problems of red meat. The first step that we can take is to track our weekly meat intake. We want to limit it to at least 18 ounces when cooking. It's better to shoot for less still. Second is we need to select lean cuts of meat if we do want to consume it. Thicker chunks tend to have more fat and more cholesterol, which we don't want. Make sure that you marinate before cooking, like said before, to reduce the carcinogen formation. We want to replace at least one meal of meat a day with plant-based alternatives, such as legumes, beans, and tofu, which are adequate sources of protein. Now, according to Professor Pasricha, as she's mentioned already, said that the American Heart Association even suggests that just one serving of red processed meat per day with plant-based protein, it'll reduce coronary heart disease by up to 47%, surprisingly, and mortality rate can be reduced by as high as 29%. Now, with all that we have reviewed, let's briefly go over everything in brief. A little recap right here. We reviewed the health problems associated with red meat. It also highlights standard recommendation of weekly red meat consumption that we should have. And also, we look into the major argument people make in defense of red meat, saying that it has more protein than many other plant-based alternatives when that's not necessarily the case. We also learn about contrast between living a meat-heavy diet or living with a plant-rich diet and the benefits of having a plant-rich diet. We also put emphasis on having a balanced diet as well, not saying that you shouldn't have any meat at all, but having a balance is actually the best for you. And it's ultimately gonna reduce the risk of cancer, heart disease, and diabetes. So a conclusion statement: red meat is carcinogenic, as we know, and monitoring the amount of meat that we consume, including introducing plant-based protein options into our diet, is going to ultimately reduce the risk of cancer, heart disease, and diabetes, and many other chronic diseases along the line. Now, with that being said, I want you to think back to the very beginning where we talk about how the fate of our health is in our hands. And I truly mean that, because we live in a world of many decisions, and it's as simple. Eating more vegetables, looking for healthier alternatives is ultimately makes the difference between incurring a bunch of health difficulties and living a life free of those difficulties just because you simply chose one thing over the other. Thank you very much. If you guys have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Thank you, guys.
Might have gone over last round. What does it say?
It was like 8:13.